lacquer smells good, doesn't it? Oh well, I guess in case you can't smell it. Okay, project is to make a mold of this teeny little sculpture. And it is sculpted in wax, and we need to reproduce it in wax so that we can pour bronzes. Now, I could just pour a big block mold and that would capture the shape. But what I wouldn't be able to do is pour a wax in it and then get it out because of all these little undercuffs, the little neck of the little camel. There's no way. So I'm gonna have to put some shims, and additionally with surface tension, I think I probably ought to make this an injection mold, which is a little different. And I've only done one successful one before, but I'm going to try to do this one. I'm going to use an injection mold, and I'm going to have to put shims, and they're going to have to be teeny. And this is not clay, so it's going to be a little harder to push them in place. For starters, I cut up some teeny tiny little keyway on the table saw, and I glued and nailed down a pattern around the perimeter to make sure that the top half of the mold and the bottom half of the mold is easy to lock together and it doesn't move around. I don't usually drink soft drinks during the middle of the day, or ever for that matter, but it is 100 degrees outside heat index, not much cooler in here, and I need a piece of aluminum. Okay, I don't have a tripod. I'm going to try to show what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to stick it right there. Alright, I have another one. My shaky hands don't usually bother me, but it makes it really hard to do stuff like this. I need one for this little notch right there. Okay, the keyway is done, and I think the little shims are done. Got him all fixed up. Got the other giraffe, it's not a giraffe, it's a camel. Camel head all fixed up. This one I think we'll be able to get out. So what I need to do now is coat all this wood with some wax or something to make sure the rubber doesn't stick to it. The rubber's pretty tenacious. I am ready to pour. I've got the box made, I got it waxed, I got this release agent sprayed. I got a little vent on every high spot. And I think my box will be leak proof. And I just gotta go get the boss and have her check the model one more time. So the sculpture lady is napping. I think I should wait and not pour it until she takes a look at it? Or should we live life on the edge and pour it? Alright, it's poured. It took 4 quarts and a little bit, and it is not leaking a drop. Our rubber's been sitting for 2 days. It's well cured. I'm going to pull out the little vents with the pliers. And these are very small on purpose because what I am trying to do is generate head pressure when I pump the wax in, to make sure the wax fills up all the little recesses. I'm not relying on gravity like I typically do, or a paintbrush. And one thing I don't know is when my wife modeled this that's with paste wax and release agent, it still wants to stick. I can't get it off. Well, I can get a pliers or something. Oyster knife. so one thing I don't know is if the sculptures are going to pull loose from the base. And I don't know how well they are stuck to the base. Everything but the head. So we lost both heads. So they're still in there. So even though I put a parting line in here with the little pieces of shims, this big block of rubber is still too stiff to open up to allow the little pieces to come out. So I think I'm going to have to cut it on the side.
So even though the aluminum little parting strips were a big aid in getting the piece to come out undamaged, they just weren't enough. The rubber's just too stiff to allow it to open up to let the wax come out. So we're cutting it. This is not uncommon. I don't like to do it. I'd rather have a solid mold with no cuts, but we're going to cut it to make some relief so that after the wax is poured and it gets hard, we can kind of bend the mold and let the pieces drop out more easily without pulling on them, because those little camel's heads are teeny and the necks aren't very strong. So that's what we're doing now, is making a series of cuts, and it's kind of challenging. The rubber block is kind of stiff. This rubber it's urethane. It comes in all sorts of different diameters for different applications. And for this little fine work, probably something a little more squishy would be better, where you could manhandle the mold a little easier. But we just have the one I believe it's a 30, I think. So we're gonna make do with what we got.
Alright, there's the base. Okay, with the aid of some hot sculpting clay, I smoothed out the backside. And now I need to do the other half of the rubber mold, and I need to have a way for the molten wax to get into the finished piece. Now the easiest thing would be just to put like a gate here and put my little round deal here to pump the wax into. But then when I go to demold, or when I take the wax out of the mold, I'm going to have this big chunk of wax, and it's going to be part of the base, and it's actually going to be heavier in cross section than the base, so I think it's going to be hard to separate. So I think what I'm going to do is put some little feeders here, 3 of these, and then put this on top of that, and that way all I have to do is trim these 3 spots, and I'll put my feeder tube into there. Alright, so we are ready to pour. I have waxed the plywood box. I have waxed the sprue, the feeder tube, whatever it's called. I've got the ink pen sticking in there. That will fit up nicely with my wax injector. Sprayed the Polys 2300 a bunch of times. And my battery light's blinking, but I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and pour this. So these videos are for entertainment, mostly my entertainment. I don't really know what I'm doing, so keep that in mind. Okay, it's been over a day. Let's open this up and see what we have. I will have to cut this to get it out, but I knew that going into it.
So the two halves of this mold are different colors, but it's the exact same product. We buy it in 5-gallon buckets, and the bottom, the darker part, the buckets were about 1.5 years old, and never noticed that it was changing colors until we opened a new can, and it's maybe they changed the formula or something.
Got the mold ready to pour. I put a piece of wood on the bottom, a piece of plywood on the bottom so it would not distort when I held it. And I taped it together with shipping tape so that when the pressure came, the 2 halves wouldn't open up. And I put some fresh wax in the wax pot. It's really hard sculptor's wax. So I'm letting it heat up. I'm going to put it, I don't know, 10 or 15 pounds of pressure on it. I really don't know the proper amount. Okay, we're ready to inject wax. I wear gloves because I'm kind of scared of this thing. The wax is hot enough to burn me and it's under pressure. But first I'll just push the valve in a little bit and make sure I got some clean wax flowing, and then I'll fill the mold and see what happens. Oh yeah. All right. So I've got a problem from lack of experience. The hole I cast in the rubber mold is too big to push in the plunger, which is under a good bit of spring tension. So I got to make this hole smaller. And I looked around the shop and I found a piece of copper pipe with a flared end on it. So I'm gonna cut it off, put it in there, see what happens. I don't know. It may need to be glued in place. I'm not sure. Let's give it a shot. So this is really getting sad. I put the flared copper in there and it pushed through. So I put the flared copper through a washer, and the washer will hold it, and then I kind of seal it with wax. And I know the wax will melt, but I'm hoping it'll stay long enough to fill the mold. So let's see. Okay, the mold is full. Some of the vents were squirting, but not all of them. So I rolled it around so we could use some gravity on our side. Time will tell. I'm gonna put it away and let it cool down. That big hunk of rubber is gonna keep that wax soft for a long time, so I'm just gonna leave it for the day and come back and open it up and see what happens. Okay, let's open it up. Let's see what
Are
it
you
looks
filming
like. Yep.
right now?
Yep.
With me eating peanuts?
Yep.
Sound and everything?
Yeah. And this open. Like that. Like that.
Okay.
So it'll come off with a screw.
Here you go.
Okay. Not warm anymore, is it? It's still warm.
Is it?
Yeah.
A little bit. Well, that means it's soft.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we better not demold yet.
Yeah, let's see how hard it is to get out.
So it filled in all this? You meant for it to?
No, it just overpowered the tape.
Mm.
'Cause it's under pressure instead of just gravity.
Oh,
So
true.
okay, I'm gonna cut some more on this side.
Okay.
So the good thing is we have a mold and it's workable and it will reproduce the Three Kings. The bad thing is it's not a good mold. It's very difficult to use, and pretty much every time we've made 4 casts so far, we lose the camel's heads. We ended up doing a lot of cutting on it, but it's just those little pieces are just so small and delicate, and this mold is so big and chunky. I should have done it a different way.
Let me try now. Okay, it's coming. Ooh, yeah, it was a little soft. We lost one head.
Okay, so we got it out. And we lost 2 little heads.
Camel heads.
But other than that, it looks pretty good. It's still
So the sculptor lady gets to use her new irons. They're little bitty and they're just perfect for this job. She replaces the camel heads and touches up all the waxes and gets them ready for me to sprue them up, put the cup on them.
Okay, the first 3 kings are been dipped enough. Same old, I'll grind the top of the cup, I'll burn the cup out, we'll melt the wax out, and I'll check it, and then we'll do a burnout. First one worked okay. I had the fire. Fire doesn't hurt anything, but it kind of scorches the wax, so I prefer we don't have a fire. A block of wax did fall out the cup, and that's my goal right here, to get the block of wax to fall out the cup. Made a little platform for the molds, so when I take them out of the kiln and they're hot, I don't have to spend a lot of time fritzing with them. I sit on that sand and lean right here one way or the other. Be good to pour. Okay, we just made our pour and it looks good. Open it up in a little bit. I've always said wax is harder than bronze, and this is my point. Struggle to get these waxes right. They come out without heads and without ears and without camel noses. And we poured these bronzes and every single little part came out. I don't need to do anything to them except clean them up. Very happy with this. Two good casts.
This is a bad video as far as color goes, but they have a greenish patina, and they'll be mounted on top of these little jewelry boxes. The boxes are not through, they're just sitting, but we think they're going to come out really well. The sculpture lady's happy, and that's what counts.